8 years of sweat, of putting together furniture, of dealing with bed bugs. Business goes under after 6 months, people go, whatever. Gave it a crack, no product market fit. We had all that. So it would have been a death by stupidity. We started a backpacker apartments business. I drove around Melbourne with my dad's trailer and bought secondhand furniture. So I furnished the apartment for a couple of grand, and we were making 20 grand a year actually off that one apartment. We thought, how good is this business? Making 20 grand per, we could do 50 apartments. That's $1 million a year. And bear in mind, I was earning 50 grand as a lawyer to work all night. So
yeah, wow.
The bar was low, what we had to get over. So we knew we needed to create a travel-only website. So we had the world's best travel deals you couldn't get anywhere else. We had a cornered resource. They think we're a fraud. This is too good to be true. How can they be so much cheaper than everyone else? There's something going to be a catch. Because it actually is unbelievable. You have runs of bad things and runs of good things. We had like bad. Just through pure grit, got through, took all our money out, put it back in. Like when you're playing poker, you just chuck everything you have in that last hand. And we literally did that.
Hear the stories, learn the proven methods, and accelerate your growth and future through entrepreneurship. Welcome to the Foundr Podcast with Nathan Chan.
Adam, thanks so much for joining us today, man.
It's great to be here. It's a huge honour.
I know, long time coming, eh?
Well, I think of two great sort of aims of our business. One's to get on Guy Raz's show and the other one's to get on your show. So it's 1 out of 2 so far.
There you go. That's awesome. Well, thanks, man. So look, tell us about Luxury Escapes. How'd you start it? Like, how did it all come together? Like, so just for context for everyone, I knew of Adam early days when I started Foundr because I met one of his co-founders in many of his businesses, Jeremy Same. And he was like a little bit of a mentor to me. And I'd never met Adam. I met him through YPO. And so I know like the journey that Adam's been on and Jeremy's been on with these businesses. And Adam's done a lot of online businesses. Like you've done a lot of brands, you've done a lot of stuff. So yeah, talk us through, how did Luxury Escapes come to be?
Funny, Jez always regrets not being able to invest in your business. One of his great, he's a good investor, but he missed out on that one. He's still angry about it. But I think let's go back from like one step before Luxury Escapes. It's probably relevant is our pre-Lux story. So I was a lawyer, Jez was a banker, and our very first business started when we were 24 in 2004. It's like Melbourne Cup Day for those Australians who are watching. November 2004, we started a backpacker apartments business. We literally saw a friend of ours was backpacking in Australia and living in just this hovel of a place in a suburb called St Kilda, and we're paying some $150 per person each. So somebody who was running this apartment was making like $400 a week and it was terrible. And we thought, we saw in real life a classic problem. We thought we can solve this problem. And I'd sort of done a bit of this stuff. I lived in Whistler and did something similar when I was living in the apartment. This is pre-Airbnb, don't forget, this is 2004. So we started our first apartment. We literally furnished the apartment. I drove around Melbourne with my dad's trailer and bought secondhand furniture. So I furnished the apartment for a couple of grand and thought, well, how are we going to get people to fill it? How do we get backpackers and sort of high-end professional backpackers, if that makes sense? So people finished studying uni or halfway through a uni course or working at a really good job, but obviously couldn't get their own house, didn't want to stay in a hostel, couldn't afford a hotel. That's kind of forgotten about market. So we thought, how do we target these people? And back then, this is 2004, there was something called internet cafes, and you were probably pretty young back then. So internet cafes had a board on the side of every internet cafe, and people would stick like posters on there, like I need a cat or whatever, like here's a trailer you want to. And so I'd go in there and we printed off this sort of piece of paper with my phone number down the bottom, the rip off. And I'd go there, rip everybody else's sign off, put our sign on there and had our first open house. And we thought, are people going to rock up to this open house? And sort of 100 people rocked up. And we ended up renting that very first apartment to a bunch of 5 English guys. In hindsight, we didn't do 5 guys ever again, but they were actually good guys. But other times we had some issues. So, and we were making 20 grand a year actually off that one apartment just by effectively making an arbitrage profit on what we rented it for versus what we rented it for, or what we rented it for.
So like an Airbnb?
Like someone running an Airbnb.
Yeah.
So Airbnb is a much better model, and they're the platform.
Yes.
So you're much better off being the platform than the principal.
Yes.
Principal, you take vacancy risk.
Yes.
So we did this in November, and we didn't realise that's the best time to be doing this kind of stuff because it's coming into Melbourne summer. So we were inundated. We thought, how good is this business? Making 20 grand we could do 50 apartments. That's $1 million a year. And bear in mind, we were earning 50 grand. I was earning 50 grand as a lawyer to work all night. So
yeah, wow.
The bar was low, what we had to get over. Started this first apartment, did another apartment. I then took a leave of absence from the law firm. What we didn't realise, we then started another team. What we didn't realise is winter's much quieter than the summer, and this is a super seasonal business. So the next few apartments after that, we had to drop the price a lot and had to sort of hustle through the sort of cold winter months, the 4 months, and then come sort of October, November, it starts warming up again. So we sort of learned that cycle. That was our first foray into business. So we went from professional services to running out, and it was just a lot of trial, mostly error, bit of trial, and we just sort of slowly learned what the best places to market were, how we dealt with customers, clients, how we had to, we put computers in it, because this is before everybody had phones and iPads. So we put, one of our big selling points was putting a computer in the apartment and people could use the internet and then download viruses all the whole. We had to go and clean the computer off every week. So it was a lot of stuff like that. We once had a bed bug infestation. We thought, what are we going to do? We never knew what bed bugs were. So we thought, we'll call one of those fumigators, and that was like $1,000. So we couldn't, that was like a whole month's profit. We couldn't do that. So then Jez found out, and a lot of our apartments were in like big, nice buildings with saunas and spas and swimming pools. And Jez is pretty industrious. And Jez found out that if you heat just kills bed bugs. So we thought, well, this apartment building has a sauna. Why don't we put the beds in the sauna and that'll kill them? So we got the beds, put them in the sauna. We went for a swim. People are trying to go in the sauna and the bed's like falling on their heads.
Yeah.
Anyway, we put it for 2 hours, finished the swim, finished the spa, pulled out, the bed bug's still there. So, and then we thought, maybe we'll use a steam cleaner. So Jez bought this cheap steam cleaner for a couple of grand, this plastic one, not like the hardcore ones you find in the supermarket, a really second-rate one. And I was like spraying like these IKEA beds and the bed bugs are flying in your face. And that was just too much hassle, like taking us like 5 hours. So it didn't work. We eventually found this amazing fumigator who would do natural remedies to get rid of bed bugs. And that was like literally error worked. So it's just, we literally like the years of doing that, just like some sort of finding solutions to problems where we never thought we would have this problem.
Yeah. And then what happened next?
So we then moved to, 2007 came and the rental market tightened. So when we started the business, it was really easy to rent an apartment. And because even though we're putting backpackers in there, owners said, just take the apartment offices, it's empty anyway. The rental market tightened, a bit like what's happened in the last few years in a lot of Western countries. And it's probably post-debt funded boom, same sort of thing. So you had that boom. Rental market suddenly became really tight. Suddenly some property managers and owners go, hold on, I don't want these guys subletting our property, even though we treated it really well and made sure that was always returned in perfect condition. Owners just changed their view on us. So we were seeing that. And then we had a massive fight with one of the big property managers who essentially tried to defraud us. They went to all these owners basically saying we were doing something we weren't. We managed to get hold of about half the owners and told them what happened. The owner said, basically sided with us and gave us their properties, but we couldn't get hold of everyone. We ended up going to court and we won in court. So we got a stay of execution essentially. And we were in the process of doing this anyway. And that was converting the apartments to corporate apartments. So imagine like Oakwood or a serviced apartment style setup, cleaned every week and sort of single tenants, which is a much more stable long-term business. Flip to that. And so it was really a blessing in disguise. So that property manager who was fraudulent really did us a massive favor in the end because we were able to accelerate the push to corporate. And as part of that, we also bought half a dozen properties using pretty much all debt. We didn't have much money at the time. And me and Jez don't like debt. So about 18 months later, we sort of sold those properties and we fixed them up a little bit of like block style. So a bit of paint, dyed the carpet, styled it so it looked really nice. Made $1 million essentially. More money we'd ever made on anything. And then we took that $1 million and started our first e-commerce business that was originally called Zoupon, based on Groupon in the States. So Groupon had about 1 million clones around the world. God knows how many in China. There was 82 Groupon clones in Australia. We were one of the 82. Yes. And we're the only ones who've really still alive. Groupon's sort of still struggling on. And then there's us. And then we soon after pivoted to a travel business.
Yeah, there you go. So, man, there's some great stories in there because I remember you started as Zoupon.
Groupon with a Z. And one of the worst names in business. So apart from being a really dumb name, it was always meant to be a working name. It was never meant to be the name. We just kept it. So as often happens with names. And there was a business in Australia called Scoopon, who is run by a couple of good friends of ours now. At the time, we didn't know them. They had a business called Catch of the Day, which is based on Woot, a guys called Gabby and Hezi Leibovich, very successful business people, now very good shareholders in Luxury Escapes. Before they were sort of enemies or people we copied. So and this is back in the sort of the rocket internet days. They did an amazing job with a business called Scoop On, and we saw it. And let's say we were inspired by a lot of what they did. Yeah. They did an amazing job. So we looked a lot like them, and they didn't do anything about that. They sort of let us be, and they were much bigger than us. And then Jez had the idea to have a second brand called Deal Scoop. And that just said, hold on, these guys just take it. And we didn't actually mean to. And there was no intention for us to pass off on them. We just didn't even think about it. I wasn't even keen on that second brand. But anyway, we launched this, we weren't going to launch this Deal Scoop business. And Hezzy goes, nah, I'm going to sue these guys. And he sued us. And we got lawyers involved and all this stuff. And then they basically said, just change the name and you'll be right. So we changed the name and they said, fine, just go off. Just get stuff, guys. Change the name. We changed the name to deals.com. That we pay $100,000 for deals.com.au, which is a much better name anyway. And we were off to the races with the new brand.
Yeah, there you go. And then those guys that sued you ended up building friendships and they became great business partners.
Yeah, so the first thing we did with these guys, so a couple of years later, Hezzy contacts us. This is about 18 months after the whole sort of name change in Bruglio, and says, why don't we catch up? We caught up with him. He was thinking about maybe buying deals.com because he was looking at stuff. And he made a really low offer, and we never really countenanced that. But we met this guy and we thought, he's actually a really good guy. Like, he was a super charming guy and super nice. And I'm sure you speak to some really successful people. And it's probably when people speak to you now that think the same. But we thought, amazing, this guy's even talking to us. Anyway, we kept in touch because we really liked him. He's obviously super smart. Him and his brother were super smart people. And then before we started Deals, our first idea for e-commerce was actually a restaurant booking business, a bit like OpenTable, essentially, but with a discount element attached. We thought the Groupon clone would get to scale faster, but we always wanted to go back to this business. And Jez essentially was running that business, and I was running the Deals business. And we had probably 30 people in that business. So it was actually decent size, but we just could never get product market fit. It was losing a bunch. It was only $100,000 a month, I reckon, that business. Wow. Even though we loved the idea, we actually pivoted to a food, like an Uber Eats style business.
Yeah. I remember him telling me about that. And you guys had reps going out there.
Yeah, we had 30, 40
trying
people.
To the Menulog thing.
Yeah. We were Menulog. We put printers in, Menulog copied us putting printers in restaurants actually. And Menulog were well more established than us. They've been around doing other stuff for a long time. And Hezzy had seen another business called Eat Now run by a great entrepreneur called Matt Dyer. We'd known Matt really at a high level. We were talking about doing a deal with Matt, but we'd already sort of built our stuff. It didn't make sense. We kind of were doing the same thing. Hezzy ended up buying Matt's business. Matt kept an equity stake, and Nathan, his partner, kept an equity stake. And they went about their business, and we were losing a bunch of money. So for us, we just couldn't get product market fit. This is sort of years gone past, and we're going to have to shut up. We thought we were going to have to shut up. We had 700 restaurants signed up. So we had some like real asset there, had printers in there, and Hezzy was just getting going with Eat Now. So I reached out to Hezzy and sent him a text message saying, we couldn't get there on Deals and Scoop On. Why don't we do a deal with our business called My Table and your business called Eat Now? And anyway, we went to see Hezzy at the same place we saw him the first time in Elsternwick, this restaurant in Elsternwick. And Jez goes, I'll take 5%. And I said, I reckon we can get 10%. Anyway, go up and said to Hezzy, we'll do a deal for 10%. He goes, we'll do a deal. And to his credit, he stood by the deal. I think we went down to like 8% eventually. But we owned 8% of his business, and we gave him all our assets, and Jez worked for them briefly. And we were always very confident the business model would work and that these guys would do a great job of it. They had plenty of capital. They'd raised money from Tiger as well. They were profitable. They really knew e-commerce, and they, to that credit, did an unbelievable job. So they were the number 2 behind Menulog, which is the dominant Australian platform. Yes. Those two businesses eventually merged. A couple of years later, we just came along the ride as small shareholders. That business then got bought by a global business called Just Eat, which is now part of Takeaway, which is actually part of Grubhub. So effectively sort of accumulated, and that business sold for almost $1 billion. So we had effectively 1% of that, which was, I think, the greatest unjustified windfall in Australian business history. It's probably this. So we had a business that was worth less than zero, probably worth negative 250 because we had to shut it down, pay redundancies, all that kind of stuff. Not only did we have to pay that, we got 2% between us of this $1 billion business. So we stood on the shoulders of really good. So the Menulog operators are amazing. Leon, Dan, all those guys. Matt, Nathan, Hezzy, Jason did an incredible job at Eat Now. We just stood in the background getting this equity, having this equity that became like quite valuable, despite being completely and utterly inept. So we were running, at the same time, we were running our Deals business in the back. That was our main business. And this was just sitting in the background. We never dreamed we'd get any money for it. Like, we were happy to get $1 million.
So you got $20 million
between us.
Wow.
And we've invested in that. Jez invested in a bunch of stuff and Bitcoin, all this kind of stuff. And I'm investing in stuff, and some stupidly, some shrewdly. But that was a huge unjustified windfall. And I think what the lesson from that is no matter how bad the business is going, there's usually an asset there and there's optionality. And our friend Neil talks about this as well. It's maintain optionality as long as you can. Now, obviously, you don't want to flog a dead horse for 10 years and just continue to lose money. But we knew there was optionality there. We knew there was a deal to be done because we had an asset that Hezi needed and that Hezi could use. So it was a great win-win. And we were obviously super lucky that those guys executed so well. And pick the right partners is probably lesson 2. Pick partners who are smarter than you and can do a really good job. So that was just such an unjustified lucky windfall that you don't get many of them.
Yeah, man, that's a crazy story. And there's a couple of things I want to focus on, because a lot of times people are watching shows like this. They might want to start something. They're just about to launch something. Well, they might be well on their way with something. And you guys, one thing that you and Jeremy did pretty well for a long time was you ran a form of like the rocket play, right? Where you'd look at a business, you'd identify whether it was worth copying or not, and you'd go pretty close to modeling it. Like, what would you say to people that want to do that and worry about like creating a Me Too company and that whole piece of the puzzle?
Interesting, because the Rocket thing, so Rocket's a German company run by the Samuel brothers that made a business of copying. Copied eBay, sold it back to eBay. Copied Groupon, sold it back to Groupon. Copied a bunch of businesses. I think HelloFresh. So I had all these, and that's kind of gone out of vogue a bit. It was in the early 2010s. That's all everybody did.
Yeah, 100%.
I can't remember the last real imitator like that. And maybe it's because businesses need more capital now, and people use capital as an advantage, as a competitive advantage. I don't know why this is not happening much anymore.
But you could look at a business, right? You want to start a business and you can see it's doing well, and you can just model everything and just copy it and just tweak a couple of things.
I guess probably the more recent example was, and it's not that recent, but the Uber copy. So everybody copied Uber. Diddy copied Uber. Remember China had like 100 Ubers, and eventually Diddy won, and Uber merged with Diddy or got apart. So that's the last I can since the Uber clones, there hasn't really been a craze of cloning for whatever. No. Something I think about it a bit actually, because Samuel brothers, so Rocket's kind of, you don't hear about anymore. They've got like their fashion businesses, which are going okay, but it's a really strange phenomenon that the copying, cloning doesn't seem to have happened lately.
Yeah, and even if you don't want to do it like on a big scale, you know what I mean? Like, how do you identify, like how would you, back in the day or even now, how would you identify an opportunity of a business that you think would be worth modeling or bringing it to your local region? Because that's what you effectively guys, you used to look at America. Like that's how you look. You looked at the Groupon model. Like, this is massive. Let's bring it to
top table model. Yep. Yeah. I think these days people, and I think the idea of startup has now moved from copying somebody to solving a problem. So I think now you've got, obviously Y Combinator started in the US, but you've got StartMate in Australia, for example, obviously Y Combinator and Techstars in the US. And most countries have a version of this incubator. Now there's a much more well-trodden path for people with startups. So these incubators take hundreds of businesses every year. Antler, for example, is a great one, and they put you together. So I think the notion of just sort of coming up with a business yourself or copying a business just doesn't seem to happen, because there's just much better routes for building bigger businesses that solve a real problem rather than just copying a business. I think to an extent, most of the copies haven't worked. Like the Samuel brothers made a bit of money by effectively selling back, but the copying craze, I think, stopped just because it was less effective than people who are creating original businesses.
Interesting. So when it comes to Luxury Escapes, how did you fall into starting that? Like,
well, ironically, Luxury Escapes is a business we didn't copy anyone on. So the only one. So we had this deals business, and the deals business eventually going to restaurants and day spas or activities and offering a big discount for customers. So go to let's say you own a restaurant. We'll go to the restaurant and say, we'll sell us $100 of food for $70 and we'll take 20% commission. So the restaurant gets $50 for giving away $100 food. The customer gets $100, we get 20. So great deal for the customer, you're saving 30%. The restaurant should be a good deal. It just depends on how good the restaurant was at understanding what they were buying. So what we're doing is we're saying to the restaurant, well, you're getting $50 cash and you're giving $100, but $100 doesn't cost you $100 because what's the marginal cost for you? You've already got your rent, you've already got your wages, you've got your fixed cost.
Yeah, we're driving you leads.
Yeah, we're giving you, so it's a cost of acquisition. You need to be thinking about this as we're giving you leads, and which you think about in your business every day, because it's what all smart online businesses do. Offline businesses don't think that way. All I think about is I'm getting cash here, I'm paying cash there. A smart business takes that lead and turns it into a higher lifetime value customer. And we still have that form of this business today with really good partners. They understand this. So it's high-end restaurants. It's really good day spas. It's much more premium stuff. it's hot springs who make money out of it and have a really high purchase price. And our discounts are a lot less big these days and our margins a bit lower, but ultimately we still have the same business model on the side of our travel business. But essentially the play was, we'll give you a really cheap or free or even negative cost acquisition. The problem in the business model was the restaurant or day spa didn't always treat this customer well. Maybe 30% of the time they treated them really well. 30% of the time it was kind of neutral, 30% was terrible. Problem for us as the platform is when the customer has a bad experience, they blame us. They might demand a refund or they just don't come back. So the lifetime value for us wasn't that great, yet the cost of acquisition was high. And because there were so many competitors, commissions were being dragged down. So in every respect, the model wasn't great, which is why everybody died, but us pretty much in Australia and Groupon globally. So there was all sorts of issues with that model, but we finally stumbled across this travel model. So a few travel, like bed and breakfast places would come to us. And with travel, you have a couple of solutions that weren't there for experience. Firstly, a much higher basket size. So if you sell an overseas trip, it's like 10 times, 20, 30 times the basket size of a massage. So but your cost of acquisition is the same. So your unit economics, which is how much gross margin you make essentially, were much better for travel. The other problem got solved in travel is travel, so hotels you work with and hospitality businesses, they naturally care about doing a good job for the customer. And if they don't, there's something called TripAdvisor or something called Booking.com where you can get rated. If you get a bad rating, you're stuffed as a business. So A, hotels cared about it naturally, and B, there was this sort of Damocles hanging over their head. They're going to do a good job. So the two big problems with the deals business, which is bad unit economics, bad LTV, were solved with travel. And we kind of didn't know what these concepts were. This is back in 2010, 11. We just could see this was a better business. And we just lent into it. We had a great, one of our friends called Mark, who did law a few years behind me, which is an incredible negotiator. He'd be able to walk into a hotel and do $1 million deal wearing a Bintang t-shirt and thongs. Like, he's possibly the best negotiator Australia's ever seen in this part of business. And not only that, he was a great merchandiser and really understood the customer, which is what every great salesperson can do. And he along with Jez and I and Josh, who was another person who was really deeply involved in the business, we just sort of stumbled across this model that didn't really exist for travel. And it's called flash sales or tactical sales is what we talk in the industry. And basically the principle is we'll go into a hotel, ideally a sort of 4, 5, 6-star resort, and hotels are never full, or very rarely full. And when they are, they know when they're going to be full. So for 50 weeks of the year, hotels got either a lot of inventory or some inventory. They could be 70% occupied, 50% or 95%. So we're basically coming into a hotel and saying, we'll give you lots of sales really quickly and we'll give you the sales when you need them. So if you're full in the Christmas week, we're not going to sell that week. We'll sell in all the other weeks where you're empty or emptier. And hotels go, okay, well, I'm getting money for nothing. I'll give you a big discount. So we can then give a customer a 30 or 40 or 50% discount and inclusions like breakfast, dinners, day spas, all that kind of stuff. So it creates a real win-win. Hotel owner makes money and the customer saves a bunch of money and we just sit in the middle and facilitate. And it's become a lot more complex than that. But the basic principle is hotels have empty rooms. Customers want to stay in those hotels and don't know these rooms exist. We'll essentially be an early bird model for these hotels to sell these rooms in advance. So they sell rooms early. B, they get to yield up, which means because they're not 0% full or 20% full going into a need period, they can charge more on other channels. And the other thing is because we never just sell the bed in the room, we include breakfast, dinners, day spas, massages, blah, blah, blah. That's high margin for the hotel. Hotel's making 80% margin off F&B. They're making maybe 30, 40% off room. So we can give a much higher, what's called revenue per available room and much more profitability for the hotel. So customers love it. Who doesn't love a massage and a dinner and a breakfast? And hotels love it because they make more money. So we're creating that really great win-win.
So when did you start to pivot into the luxury escapes model and build out the brand?
Yeah.
Because you've done an exceptional job with the brand. You got a retail stores, not just in Chadstone, but other places around Australia now too. You got one
soon.
Soon.
Sydney
okay.
soon.
Okay. All right. Okay. Can we talk about
We
that?
can talk about it.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, it's coming, Sydney. It's coming.
But it's really, really cool. Like what you've done with the brand is very, very impressive. And this is not a small business. Like this is a big business.
Yeah. So in terms of, you're right. And so we started doing travel under the deals.com.au brand and we started doing more and more deals. And we realized probably within 18 months, so called 2012, 2013, that our customers loved it, but hotels didn't love being on deals.com.au because you're sitting in it. We had all sorts of stuff on that site. We had homewares on that site, fashion on that site, some cheap stuff, $25 massages, like all sorts of stuff. If you're the Ritz-Carlton, you don't want to be next to that. You want your brand in a pristine environment. So we knew we needed to create a travel-only website. And then I think Jez found luxuryescapes.com somehow. He was great at finding domain names, a lot of terrible ones, this really good one. Paid $100,000 for it, maybe $120,000 to it was a travel agent in Sydney who owned it, wasn't using it.
Yeah.
So great win for her and great win for us. We created this brand that didn't really exist. That was, and then we bought a business called Getaway Lounge from Channel 9, which is a TV station in Australia. They had this business that wasn't going, it was a similar concept, but it wasn't going that well. And then we rolled some their members because we bought that business and they didn't want us to call it Getaway Lounge. We said, we don't want your name anyway, so shove your name. We'll take the customers and roll them into Luxury Escapes in 2013.
So that's from the TV show Getaway?
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, how'd you find that?
That we bought a business called Kudo, which was very well known from Channel 9, and they were linked together. And that was run by a guy called Mike Sneesby, who till recently was running Channel 9. So it was a really interesting business. That was a really great, probably our best ever acquisition. We did 15 or 16, most of them terrible. That one really good.
Yes.
And yeah, that probably put us to $100 million plus revenue, doubled our staff to well over 100. We still had to learn a lot after that, but that took us next. And then so we launched Luxury Escapes 2013, and the beauty of having a different brand for the first 3 years is you make all your mistakes on the first brand, so the customer service errors. And not that we always lent hard into customer service and over-indexed on CS spend. But we learned so much over that first 6-year apprenticeship in the backpacker apartment, corporate apartment thing, and then 3-year apprenticeship online, Web 2.0. And then we were ready to go. We had 100-person plus business by then when we started Luxury Escape. So we didn't make the brand mistakes that pretty much everyone makes when it's their first time running an online business.
And you also had that portfolio of brands so you could see what the game was and what worked best. Why did you start acquiring other brands? Because you said you acquired 17.
I think it's 15 or 16.
Yeah. Why did you do that and not just focus on one?
We were trying to get scale. So we weren't trying to acquire brands. We were trying to acquire customers. So we bought a business called Kudo, and a business called Living Social, and a business called Ufa, and a business called Brands Exclusive. They're all sort of doing slightly different things. And a business called The Home, which was homewares, a bit like Temple & Webster or Wayfair for the US audience. So we bought all these businesses for a cheap customer acquisition cost. Yes. The problem is when you buy a business, and you've probably spoken to a lot of people about this, is it's not a simple matter of just you can't just bolt business together. There's a bunch of tech work. So we'd always want to bring them onto our platform. So Josh would lead that stream. And then the other thing with acquisition is you've got to be really careful about staff, because there's usually some really good staff in the business. They're the first to leave. So before you buy the business, we'd work out, here's the best, say 50-person business, here's the 20 staff you can't afford to lose. There's 30 that you can't. The ones that inevitably leave are the 20 you don't want to leave. So we'd work day one, go in, straight in. I spend a week in meetings with the top 20 staff and effectively begging them to stay. And they generally would. And we've had people from acquisitions who are still with us 8-9 years later, and they're cornerstones of our team, and some that stayed 4, 5, 6 years who are incredible servants of our business. And we're super grateful they joined us and stayed with us. So I'd run the people side, Josh would run the tech side. We integrate, but it's 6 months of hard work. You can't integrate a business in less than 6 months, best case. For like the fashion business, it was longer because there was a whole warehouse piece and a massive tech integration. But so we tried to get to scale because these businesses depended on scale. But with the experiences business, we just never got there. So we ended up descaling and we scaled up the travel business. And our travel business has grown organically for sort of 12 years now. We haven't bought anyone in travel. Obviously, after the Getaway Lounge thing, that was very early and quite small. And we just scaled up through a combination, like a lot of organic, a lot of word of mouth. And we spend a decent chunk of money marketing through digital channels. We have a TV show, we have a retail store, which is really a big marketing piece. We do a lot of radio stuff, we do heaps of newspaper stuff. So we do a lot of affiliate. So every form of marketing that you would do, we do. And we tend to zig when others zag. So we started a TV show and do a lot of content stuff. So that's a big lift for us. We produce it ourselves. We show it on multiple channels in Australia. We cut it across digital channels. We work with some of the best celebrities in Australia we contract with them, they come on our show. We have a big influencer team who does a lot of stuff we've got a couple of million people who follow us across socials, probably one of the biggest social followings in Australia. And Lean we've got a great team that runs all that stuff. So it's a really interesting business from a marketing perspective. We don't consider ourselves experts at anything, but we try lots of stuff and we're quick to learn.
So you said something interesting around like some of these businesses that you started or acquired that you couldn't get scale, or if you started them, you couldn't get product market fit. For people watching, listening, How would you describe, when you hit product market fit?
I think when you're starting to make profit, I think when you're generating profitability, and typically if you're a SaaS business, you're not going to be profitable that early, but certainly profitability on a unit level, if you're making gross margin, there's a degree of product. If certainly if you're making contribution margin, I think you can say you've got product market fit. So if you're getting back your cost of acquisition, and it's different if your lifetime's 10 years, then you can obviously have a more lenient view of this. But if you're a retailer like we are, essentially, I think to get product market fit, you want to be profitable on first purchase. To me, that's always been the measure of a retailer. You can't rely on subsequent purchases because there's so often there's a thing it's called a Google tax for a reason. Google will tax you every time a customer buys. And worse if you're a product business because you've got Google Shopping to pay. I think the really interesting piece is, and this is what we've learned probably more recently, is having product market fit's one thing. How do you build competitive advantage? And we've really spent probably the last 5 years, how do we build competitive advantage in this business? Because we were a nice business, had a pretty strong brand, like a reasonable brand. This is bringing that to 2018, 2019, but we didn't have that great competitive advantage. And we spent the last 5 years trying to work out, well, how to, as a D2C retailer, which is one of the hardest things to build competitive advantage in, because I think the classic competitive advantage is switching costs. If you've got and no D2C retailer has that. Unless you can get a loyalty program up, which we've recently launched, and which obviously Amazon's the classic one. Yes. So the notion of one thing having product market fit and being profitable, it's a very different thing having competitive advantage and building a sustainable business that out-earns profitability compared to its sort of contemporaries.
Can you share some of the things that you guys have done to focus on competitive advantage? I know one of them is tech infrastructure and doubling down on tech. Yeah,
so tech, I guess what does tech give you is though we don't really have process power. I think of the Hamilton Helmut's 7 forces that the acquired guys talk about so well. So brand, we had a bit of brand before, and we've clearly got brands in Australia, and you can tell that because our conversion in Australia is double what it is. So we operate in 29 countries, but really Australia is our biggest market. New Zealand's a great market, and UK is becoming an increasingly good market for us. And then everywhere else, we're still a work in progress. Singapore's okay, US is not bad, India we've been in and out of, and Europe's actually showing some interesting promise, but UK is going really well, and New Zealand's been a great market for many years for us. But Australia has double the conversion rates because our brand is so much stronger here. So brands, and you think of all the great businesses, especially great D2C, Coca-Cola, Nike, McDonald's, they're selling largely commoditized products, but they've got brand differentiation. 100%. Nike, Adidas, there's literally no difference in product. It's pure brand. Yeah. So, and we've seen Nike's brand drop off, and probably why Nike's dropped off as a business in the last 2 years.
You reckon Nike's dropped off?
Well, share price is off 60%. So if we're simply looking at what shareholders think.
That's interesting. Because from a culture perspective, I don't see that.
And Nike's had a decision of John Donohue, who was CEO after Mark Parker, who was designed the Air Pegasus, who followed obviously great Phil Knight and came off from ServiceNow, which has been a great business, but has really struggled. So Nike, but the beauty of Nike's brand being so strong is it's been able to an extent, survive this catastrophic business performance. So we've got a degree of brand. Our brand allowed us to survive COVID. So if you look at COVID as a travel business, and you obviously know travel very well, we were able to, our customers trusted us to not demand a refund in almost all cases because they love luxury escapes. They knew we sold a unique product. They wanted to keep that product, or they'd buy something else with us. So very few of our customers demanded a refund versus like a Booking.com. Booking.com is the best travel business in the world, or Google and Booking.com are the best travel business in the world. But Booking sells a commoditized product. So they just gave refunds and they were fine. They did very well and continued on. But we were lucky enough that our brand was strong enough that our customers loved us so much they were happy to keep it as either credit or keep the actual package itself till COVID went away. So look at other competitive advantage, cornered resource. Do we have a little bit of cornered resource? Because we do exclusive deals with our hotel partners and we deliver more volume than anyone else in the world. So we would go to our great friends at Hyatt Bali or Pan Pacific Singapore or Royal Horse Guards in London, or these great partners of ours, and we deliver a genuine amount of revenue for them. So we've got, and they give us a really great package to sell to our customers, and they don't give it to anyone else. So we've got a bit of cornered resource there. Yes, you can buy those hotel rooms on Booking.com, but you can pay double. So I'd say that's a bit of cornered. We don't really have process power, and we had no switching costs, which is a real challenge. So we have the highest NPS of any retail travel business in the world, we think. I'm not talking about the high-end tour business like Abercrombie, because that's a bit different, but for a non-verticalized business, we have an NPS of 72, which is unheard of. Given Booking, which is like the best in class, is like 10. So we've got unbelievable NPS, yet our customers will buy from us and then go to Booking next week, because for any number of reasons. There was zero switching costs in D2C. How do we build switching costs? I'll tell you how we're trying to build it in a second. So switching costs, cross, process power, cross, counter positioning. Yeah, we have that. We did flash sales, booking.com can't, but every startup has counter positioning. So sort of put that away. I think I pretty much covered all the key competitive advantages I can think of. So how do we build, so network effects. Oh, and scale. Didn't really have scale because we weren't global and had no network effects, obviously. So how do we build switching costs and how do we build some sort of network? So again, this is not our idea, it's not original, but Amazon Prime, the absolute classic loyalty program, we've spent 5 or 6 years thinking about loyalty. COVID happened in the middle, so we had to put it on pause, but COVID finished up. How do we build loyalty? And we're doing two. One, we're about to launch a points scheme, a bit like the airlines have. That launches in 6 months. But about 4 months ago, we launched what we call Lux Plus. Not the most original name, but we like it. And effectively, that's $250 a year, $500 subscription fee, and you get significant discounts on our core deals. You get lots of extra inclusions on our marketplace deals. You might get, you get 40% off insurance, which is massive. You get priority customer support. You get access to hidden deals. You get exclusive access. We'll have a Lux Plus week, like Amazon has a Prime week. So you get lots of things, but you basically get back your purchase cost in some cases on your first purchase. So you can save $250, not your $500, but you save your $250. So you basically pays yourself off day one, and then everything's cream for the customer. So we want people to buy in, so call it sunk cost fallacy, but it's not a fallacy here because they're actually getting real value. We think customers can save $2,000 easily for $250 a year. And the reason we're happy to give those kind of discounts is we're not paying Google to reacquire the customer time after time after time. So we launched 3 months ago. We've seen some incredible metrics. So we're seeing metrics like 30 to 40% more average sessions and average orders per user. Clicks are 50% up. We've seen every cohort's significantly better. And I think about 10% of customers, 10 to 15% of customers have subscribed to Lux Plus since we launched Lux Plus, so the eligible universe. And they're now purchasing about 40 to 45% of the product being sold on the site. So almost half has been bought by sort of 10% of customers. So these are our best customers. And 38% of these customers weren't existing customers. So they became a customer a good customer after. So we're seeing sunk cost fallacy in real action, but not just that, because people are getting great value. So we're able to give customers incredible value. Even we already have great value, we're giving them better value. So yeah, we're not making much margin, but we're not paying marketing costs. Our contribution margin sort of gets higher. So it's a great win for the customers and it's a great win for our partners. And also lots of travel partners, hotels, are willing to give bigger discounts if the public don't see it. So because this is a full paywall part of the site, a hotel can give a free dinner, free breakfast always through the year and know that the other partners aren't going to get annoyed because it's behind the paywall, they don't see it.
Hey guys, I really hope you're feeling inspired from today's interview. The truth is, there's never been a better time to build an e-commerce business. And the best part is, you don't need to do it alone. That's where Foundr Plus comes in, which I'm really excited to share with you. If you are feeling stuck in your e-commerce business, lacking the confidence to really move forward, or you're worrying about making costly mistakes or how to drive your sales, Foundr Plus is here to support you. You get access to a customized learning pathway with proven frameworks from successful e-commerce founders for fast results, a supportive community. We have weekly live mentorship and workshops and exclusive savings on startup tools and 24/7 real human support. You can try Foundr Plus today for just $1 for 7 days so you can accelerate your business goals. Just visit foundr.com/start $trial or click the link in the description to claim your trial. All right, now let's jump back into the show. Yes. Very clever. So talk to me. There's been some hard times. You've been a founder for 20 years now. You've seen the ups, the downs. I know some crazy stories where you guys were pretty close to losing it all. Can you share what that's looked like?
There's really been one time where we came pretty close. And I talked about when we bought a couple of businesses. And the first business we bought in 2012, it was a bit of an acqui-hire. The business was actually a decent sized business, but it was really an acqui-hire because Josh was running it. And we bought that business. Then we bought a couple other businesses, a homewares business and a kind of pop culture business straight after. Yes. had we just bought the first one, would have been okay. But then we buying the three, having to integrate three businesses all at once was just and we never done an acquisition before. So it was just, and we're changing tech platforms. We're doing just too much. So the core deals business was profitable and doing all right. But these other businesses, especially the last two, had always massive liabilities we didn't really understand. And we came towards Christmas that year. Christmas is always a bad time for travel because people aren't buying travel for Christmas, sort of the month before Christmas. And we were doing our modeling and thought, we could very likely run out of money here. We were making money in our core business, but we're about to run out of money, which is a weird situation to be in. And probably as you run out of money, you run out of money. Like you die. So we didn't get to like a day away. We saw we had a month of cash basically. So basically shareholders got together and all but one shareholder put cash in the business. So we made an emergency. We didn't have that much money at the time. We put sort of all our cash in the business. And Mitch Mark, who is that great negotiator, managed to do an incredible deal, which gave us a couple $100,000, which sort of gave us that plus the cash put in. As soon as we put the cash in and did that deal, we knew it'd be okay. And then we did another great deal in January. And then after that, we were off to the races. But there was definitely, we were running around town into early December that year thinking we aren't going to survive. Like, unless something changes. And then Mitch did his magical deal and we all put cash in out of our own pocket, all but one put cash in out of our own pockets, and we were able to sort of skate through. But I was waking up in a cold, like we were waking up 6 o'clock thinking, I think it was 2012, that's 8 years of being in business. I would have been a partner at a law firm or a managing director at an investment bank by then. Think of how much you'd be earning. I've done all this work, 8 years. I wasn't married then, but I was living with my then wife, who was going to become my wife. All this work we'd done, like 8 years of sweat, of putting together furniture, of dealing with bed bugs. Think about all this. Think about the end of Survivor and going through like what happened in that. I could think about that in 8 years of it. All the stuff we didn't get. All this stuff is for nothing, and you look like losers because people think you're a high flyer, how much money, how well. By then, people thought we were doing really well. This wasn't. People think you've been through this yourself. People think you're a loser. And when we started in 2004, like entrepreneurial, being a founder wasn't cool. Now being a founder is like people like you and me being a founder cool. Not cool back then. Back then it was like you were a failure. You couldn't succeed in law. So you've done this apartment thing. We finally got to the point where we weren't laughing stocks. We were sort of doing all right as founder. We then became more successful. We were doing all right. We weren't in the rich list or anything like that at that point. But like we were people thought we were okay. And the humiliation of having a business go under at that point, it's different. Business goes under after 6 months, people go, whatever, gave it a crack, no product market fit. We had all that. So it would have been a death by stupidity. And this is before we got the $10 million out of that came like a year later. Everything, you have runs of bad things and runs of good things. And we then had a run of good things not long after. But we had like bad. And we just through pure grit got through and through backing out, we put money back. We took all our money out, put it back in. We're like when you're playing poker, you just chuck everything you have in that last hand. And we literally did that. And yeah, we didn't come within a day or two of dying. I remember being with Josh in Sydney and thinking, what are we going to do? Like, who can we speak to? Can we speak to this person? And nobody gave us a cent. Like, had anybody invested us then, somebody probably could have invested us for $10 million then. And we'd have happily taken like 5 mil on 10. And you could have had half our business and could have 50 bagged it or 100 bagged it or whatever it was. But nobody takes those bets because they're too risky. Well, most people wouldn't, and nobody did. Even our existing shareholders, like, the founders put money in, but the other shareholders didn't, but I don't blame them. We had a few people who put together a deal for us and became shareholders. I don't blame them for not putting money in for a second. But we did, and we sort of got away with it in the end. But it could have gone the other way. Had Mark not got that deal, had we not been able to put money in, had we not got the second deal, there's a fair chance I wouldn't be sitting here speaking to you. God knows what I'd be doing. Yeah.
Well, look, you have a great podcast and you interview and speak to all the successful founders too. I'm curious to hear, do you think every founder, if they are not getting an experience like what you described, and I've experienced this too, that you're just not pushing hard enough and it's a rite of passage to build something of true worth and significance? Like for me, I see this as a common theme.
Yeah. It's a really good question. I don't think it's necessary. I think
it's definitely not necessary, but it just happens.
It does happen a lot. Like the Airbnb guys with the Airbnb Yos or whatever they call it. Like, it does happen. Uber guys had it happen every 2 weeks. Amazon happened a bunch of times. Like, I think when you think about it, if you're trying to build a big business, especially a really big business, you've got to double, like keep betting the farm. If you don't keep betting the farm, and we were a negative working capital business. So and you're probably a similar sense in that we get paid by our customers in advance. So we always had that cash flow, but you always run the risk there as well. So when you run a negative working capital business, yes, you don't have to raise external capital, which we didn't till after COVID, where we sort of fixed the balance sheet because COVID impacted our balance sheet a bit. But you run a much riskier model, or if you're raising cash and you're trying to, like, look how risk-seeking Jeff Bezos was at Amazon. Of course, he's going to almost collapse because he's kept betting the farm. Like, you're always going to go on there. So I think it's a nature of almost, because if you got really big, to get really big, you have to take massive risks. And if you take a massive risk, by implication, one of those may have gone wrong and killed you, because you're taking existential risks repeatedly for the first probably 5 years of your business. So when you think about it, it actually makes sense that you speak to a lot of people, because you speak to a lot better, bigger entrepreneurs than I have ever spoken to. And you probably see the very best, and the very best have probably come, it's like you're sort of playing, you're about to crash, and then you sort of just, as you're about to crash, you sort of suddenly the propeller starts spinning again. And it's a bit like that. Where Reid Hoffman says, great entrepreneurs, you sort of building the plane on the way down, or putting the parachute together on the way down. That's kind of what you're doing as an entrepreneur.
Yeah, and it's really interesting, right? Because like most founders, I've had friends, you know, I'm sure you've had friends that have had these close calls, and it's like every time it happens to you too, it's like the best thing. Like, it's caused you to do things that you would have perhaps not have done, and you've always been better off. Have you found that you've always been better off as well?
Well, think about instance one is when we had the backpacker apartment business,
Yeah.
and then we pivoted to corporate apartments.
Yeah.
We probably would have pivoted at some point. We definitely wouldn't have pivoted as
Wouldn't have
aggressively.
forced you.
Wouldn't have forced us.
Yeah, that's right.
We wouldn't have bought those properties. Had we not bought those properties, we wouldn't have had the $1 million. We wouldn't have had the $1 million to start our next business. So
Correct.
That was a massive stroke of what turned out to be luck,
Yeah.
and built resilience. And then if you look at the next one, the existential threat when we almost ran out of money, we probably had less learnings from that, other than just being a bit less aggressive, more conservative with cash flow. But that was less beneficial. But I look at COVID. So I think COVID travel business.
Yeah. So what happened there, man? Like, most people think travel business, like, you guys must have got killed during COVID.
From a pure profit and loss balance sheet perspective, absolutely we did. If you look at value of business, the opposite happened. So just before COVID, so year before COVID, I stepped out of the business. Me and the key shareholders agreed, we'll try and sell a majority of this business. I mean, there's a lot, you talk about founder mode, manager mode. Founder mode comes in and out of vogue. It's a bit like sort of baggy jeans. Like, sometimes it's founder modes, sometimes everybody loves founders, as you see. Sometimes people hate founders, and we should bring, like the Sequoia style, sack the founder, bring in a manager. Eric Schmidt at Google, argument say. Steve Jobs, John Scully, the most famous one. Now founder mode's very much in fashion, like probably more than ever before. And you've got, think of it, every founder, obviously Steve Jobs isn't alive, but is dietified. Jeff Bezos still considered one of the best CEOs of all time. Evan Spiegel's still running the shop there. Zuck obviously still doing a great job. Jensen, probably the king of founders now. 2 jobs, Denny's, and founding NVIDIA. So founder modes come very much in fashion. 2019 it wasn't in fashion. So we all thought, founder's not there, we can get a better valuation from, say, private equity, who's potentially buying a minority, or strategic. And we'll put a manager in to run the business. That manager will then go work with a new buyer, and we'll get a better valuation that way. And there was a lot of merit in that. So I wasn't 100% sold on that, but I kind of thought, yeah, there probably is enough merit that it's worth a try. And it gave me a chance to go traveling and do some other stuff. COVID happens. We literally had 50 people through the data room, had people spend $2 million on DD, get to our final 3, COVID happens. And understandably, all the final 3 run off. So looking at valuations that were kind of mid-2s or early 2s, which we thought was massively undervaluing the business, but the market is what the market is. We ran a fulsome process, and the market was right. We didn't have a competitive advantage, or we didn't, apart from brand, had very little competitive advantage. And the market smartly recognized that. And certainly in hindsight, even at the time, we kind of agreed, yes, we wanted a lot more, and we thought the business could be worth more, but the market doesn't lie in a fulsome process. So we ran this process, and all the buyers went away. So we had to go back to the drawing board. So 6 months later, the business, COVID certainly impacted revenue. Obviously, our business was outbound travel, mostly from Australia, and that was illegal. So we could do a bit of inter-Australia travel, but then you had lockdowns that impacted that. So yeah, our revenue was impacted, but not to zero, like a lot of we sort of maintained 30 to 40 to 50% of our revenue. So it was not the worst. We could sell domestic, and we also could sell US to Maldives, for example. We became a massive seller of US to Maldives product. And UK was still going. So we didn't fire a single person because of COVID.
That's
like
awesome.
Specifically. I think the only travel business in the world to not fire anybody. In fact, we grew our team over the duration of COVID. But that caused a pretty big profit and loss balance sheet hole. So we had to raise money post-COVID. But what COVID did, apart from kill the process that would have undervalued us, it really made us think about competitive advantage, and we started building our first marketplace. So instead of having just a small number of short time, really discounted deals, we had always on deals through the year. And then tours we had on through the year. And we started cruises and villas and experiences we sort of redid and put all as a marketplace. So we went from 30 technology people in the business, being product, design, engineering, to 140 now. So we went from business that was, people maybe thought we were a tech business, but really we were an industrials deals business with a veneer of tech, to being a genuine, really strongly technology-enabled business. Our tech team now is world-class. Like, we get people out of Atlassian, people out of Canva, people out of what people think are the best tech business in the country. We recruit really good people for them to work for us. We've got an incredible team, led by an incredible leader in Shai, who's built an amazing thing. Shai left us, went to Amazon, and came back and had all those Amazon learnings. Amazon's such an amazing business. We had the advantage of having somebody who was in there. So when I came back 6 months into COVID. First thing I did was got Shai back, and then brought a few other people back, rebuilt the team and really focused. And the beauty of and the guy who came in around it did some really good things, but did some things I probably wouldn't have agreed with. But a lot of the mistakes I was making, he just continued. Like, it wasn't his fault. He just did what I was doing. And then I look at it and go, hold on, that was stupid. So it gave such a new lease of life, being able to effectively look at yourself from outside the window. And I could see everything I was doing wrong. I'm still doing stuff wrong, no doubt. But I could see a lot of the things I was doing wrong as a CEO, and really tried to fix that. So it was a huge benefit stepping in and stepping out 18 months in. Obviously, COVID gave us heaps of leeway to experiment with lots of stuff. And especially when we raised capital, we could experiment with lots of stuff. We were private. We didn't have to raise dilutive capital like Webjet or like Flight Centre, who great businesses had to do. Even Airbnb had to raise hugely dilutive capital. So we didn't have to do any of that. We raised capital at a valuation that was like double what we were getting offered pre-COVID. What we were going to sell for turned out to be the bargain we thought it was at the time. And that's because we changed the business. It was much more technology driven. We're now a business of 3x the size we were pre-COVID, 2x, almost 3x the staff, 3x the revenue, more profitable, and a much more stable with business with but with competitive advantages that we can see. So if you look at Lux Plus, we got sticky customers now, so switching costs. Also a bit of a network. So if you think of what that subscription business is we get more benefits from members, exclusive benefits that are hidden for members, so more people are likely to join. As more people join the platform, more hotels participate because there's more customers for them, which gives us more. So creating the famous Jeff Bezos flywheel. So more benefits to customers, which gives you more customers, which gives you more benefits, which gives you more customers. So we finally started to build our very first flywheel. We've never had a flywheel, really. We've now got a flywheel. We're seeing that with the metrics of Lux Plus. It's just leading to a halo effect. We had 3 of our most profitable months ever, our biggest contribution margin month ever in September. September's usually a terrible month for us because of school holidays and other stuff. We had a record month last month from a contribution margin perspective. I think October could be better, and January, November, December won't be because they're always sort of seasonally bad months, but January should be a huge month, assuming nothing goes wrong essentially. And that's because we had the cover of COVID to work on a bunch of stuff that we otherwise wouldn't have done and wouldn't have the guts to do. Probably wouldn't have even thought about it. We probably would have sold half the business and been tweaked on to being a business that made $25 million a year or whatever, but was growing pretty slowly, and it was sort of a nice business and people loved it, but wasn't ever going to be a multi-deca unicorn or decacorn or whatever. We've got a lot of work to do still, and we've got an incredible team to do it, but we could become a decacorn one day. I'm not saying we will, but we have the foundation to keep growing into that. Whereas if you go back 5 years, we never would have. Like, maybe we could have got to 500-600 million, whatever. We never would have hit unicorn, and definitely wouldn't have got further than that. Now I think we have the team and the market to potentially do it. That's not to say we will, because there's competitors and markets change and lots of things happen. But we have, I think, now got the real TAM to grow into, whereas I don't think we had that before.
Man, just for everyone listening, watching, what's a decacorn for people that don't know?
It's a 10 times unicorn. It's a $10 billion business.
Yeah. And how far away, like, where would you say you guys would be valued at now? Like,
we did around 18 months ago at just under 500, sort of 450. Somewhere between there and unicorn. Like, it depends how you're valuing us. We get valued on EBITDA. So because we make money, we don't get, like, if we got valued on Airbnb's valuation, we'd be multi-billion. But we don't consider that valuation to be right. We get valued on EBITDA multiple and potentially a PE multiple at some point because we make real EBITDA, not fake EBITDA. And that's what we how do we keep growing cash flow? Like we like to think of ourselves as a real business that actually makes money. And when you're an e-commerce business, it's different when you're a SaaS business, you're a marketplace, when you eventually can grow and scale into a really big valuation. If you're a retailer and you're not making money at a contribution margin level, you've probably got an issue and it's probably not a great business. And yes, you get benefit from scale. Like we want to, as we grow what's called TTV. TTV is a bit of a vanity metric that isn't relevant for us, but our TTV is over $1 billion now. But that's irrelevant. It's money through the till. But if we can get our margin of TTV up to sort of 6-7%, which we're not there at the moment, we're a lot lower than that. But as we scale, that's the challenge. So we want to scale TTV, we want to scale margin really, and we want to scale margin percentage. So how do we become more and more profitable? And that to an extent happens as you get bigger because your fixed costs obviously scale out of them. We haven't grown our tech team in probably a year. So it's stayed at that 140 level. And the aim is to, obviously we will eke it up. Our customer service team scales to an extent, although we're trying to use AI to reduce that. Our sales team definitely scales, although our hotel team doesn't have to scale too much because we do it by region. So once all the regions are allocated, you don't need to scale that too much. So I think we can definitely scale ahead. The question for us, can we keep getting our marketing more efficient? We've had a great year. Our marketing team's done a great job of significantly improving contribution margin. So we've reduced our marketing spend year on year and increased sales, which is sort of what you want. If we can keep getting marketing more efficient, hold employee costs, we probably can eventually get to that 6% margin. 6-7%. And then if you get to $1 billion, $2 billion in $2 billion in turnover at 7%, that's a really good bit. That's $140 million in EBITDA. So can we get there one day?
That's impressive.
Well, we're nowhere near that yet now. Yeah. But can we get there? Well, time will tell, but that's what we're aiming for.
And how long do you think that will take?
I hope we can get there within 5 years. Yeah. There's a lot of ifs and variables. We've got to execute on loyalty. We've got to execute on bed bank switching. There's a bunch of hard stuff we're working on. Loyalty is really hard. So we've done the easier loyalty, the subscription loyalty, which I think is a great product, but it's a pretty easy product. It's a single product. Points loyalty, which is effectively creating your own currency, is much harder. You've got liability on the balance sheet. You've got to make sure you get the points right. You've got to work with third parties like Amex, like the banks, to sell points.
Oh, there's man, if you can tap into the Amex stuff, that'll be game changing. How do you tap into that?
Well, Amex only puts on one new partner every 5 years. So assuming you're going to be that one partner is probably wrong. But we work with a lot of banks. We work with Amex in a number of different senses. So we hope one day maybe we'll be able to work with them in that sense. But we work with a lot of the banks and we think the banks are much more likely to jump on. When we ask our customers, would you rather luxury escapes points or airline points? 72% said luxury escapes points. And part of the reason, a lot of your customers are US-based or Australian-based. A lot of people know about points. And the problem is it's really hard to spend points on airlines now because airlines are full. They don't want to give point seats.
Yeah, I know. That's a massive problem. And now they doubled the points, tripled the points.
Exactly.
Like they're not as valuable as they used to be.
Yeah, so that's what we think. So if you look at the value of a business class point, it's 5 cents a point historically. But you can never redeem for business class. So yes, they were notionally worth 5% in this make-believe land. In reality, they're not worth that at all. Your economy points value is 1 cent. We think we can come in at sort of just over 1 cent, and that's before our deal value, because remember our deals are 30-40% off. So it's really like 1.5, 1.6. And it's always redeemable. It's not like an airline where you go, oh, there's nothing available. People will be able to use it as cash on our site. So we think we can make an impact there. So for our customers who actually want to use their points and don't want to have points that sit there literally deflating, because every minute these points are deflating. There's inflation, and B, there's actually points deflation as well. If you can actually use your points on Lux, that's, we think, a huge benefit. So we want to target the everyday value of points. So yes, you're not getting the 5-6 cents you got on business class, but I'd much rather get 1.5 cents I can use than 5 cents I can never use.
No, that makes sense. So I want to switch gears and ask you a question about you personally. So you're actually very active on Twitter. You do throw a bit of shade around on certain companies or individuals, and you're not afraid to share what you're thinking, or if you think something is bullshit. You know, you are quite active. You write some op-eds and you're quite vocal there. Like you write controversial articles, if I'm going to be honest, man. But if somebody met you at a bar or like at a barbecue, you're a very unassuming guy, and you don't have this kind of, in your writing, it is quite like full on, man. So like, where does that come from, and what inspired you to go out and kind of call bullshit, or what you believe is bullshit, on certain company valuations or even political? Like, Yeah, like it's a very interesting side to you. Do many people ask you this?
Not really. It's really interesting. In terms of business, for a start, I try to never punch down. So it's very, very rarely I'll speak badly about a small business or a startup. It's always punching up to big business. So if you look at the people I've been very vocal on the valuation of a business called Atlassian, Australia's 10th biggest business, but not on the founders are incredible founders who have done an amazing job, and two of the best founders Australia's ever produced, Mike and Scott. Being critical of valuation is very different to being critical of people. So I tend to be critical of where the market has overvalued a business, or if there is a CEO that's, I think, being a bit dubious with what they're saying, that's a bit different. But again, that's punching up. I'd very rarely say that on a small business. That's usually a big business. But if you look at most of the businesses we talk about on our pod, The Contrarians, where we delve deep into businesses, they're mostly billion, 10, 15, 20, like $50 billion businesses. It's not often we'll talk about, certainly in a negative way, about small business. We tend to talk, I don't love big business. I don't love government in terms of like the waste. So that's what I'll focus on. So I think if you look at like sort of the great Australian journalist, the Joe Astons, Joe's like the loveliest guy I'll ever meet. People, you think in his writing, he was pretty sort of firm, but he would always never punch down as well. He'd only ever punch up. So I think it's a similar sort of context where if you see, it's probably comes from like high justice. Like you see something that's wrong, you want to inform people about it. I wrote a book called Pigs at the Trough in 2010. Yeah, 2010.
I didn't know about that.
Yeah, I'll get you a copy. Amazon.com, microeconomics bestseller. And it was talking about the companies that collapsed during the global financial crisis, and not just any collapse, where and there was some stuff on executive pay, but companies that collapsed and that the sort of founder or CEOs took a bunch of money out. So that was kind of the theme. So whereas shareholders have been ripped off by dubious sort of founders, executives. So that has always been the focus, the high executive pay. Why should a CEO get 100x or 500x someone who's on the front line? And if you look at our business, my pay is right in the probably below the 50th percentile of our business. And yeah, I'm a shareholder, but I get that either way. I think CEOs historically have been fundamentally overpaid almost across the board. And look at Elon Musk's $50 billion or whatever, $50 million at Tesla's. Look, he doesn't need the money. He's the richest guy in the world. Why is he getting extra money for running Tesla? Why is Tim Cook getting billions of dollars? Why is Sheryl Sandberg and Tim Cook, who are both brilliant executives, getting $1 billion? It just doesn't make any sense. So a lot of what I've written about has been about executive pay. So it's, again, these are wealthy people who are much wealthier than I am. I don't think I'd ever talk about a founder, like a single founder who's like the business collapsed. I'd never talk badly about that because they've given it a crack. They've tried their best. It's very different to the people I'd talk about.
You know, you'd been hustling, building business for 8 years, you know, perceived successful. And this is the crazy thing. Like sometimes on the outside, it looks like your business is doing so well, but people don't really know truly what's going on behind the scenes. And from the outside, it could look like it's absolutely killing it, but you're not. And you said even then, like, you know, imagine how you would be perceived by others. So like, there's a little bit of like a trade-off there. Like you're not worried to speak out, but then and that's a fear of mine too. Like we all care about like what other people would think if we fail, you know?
I've always felt that if I say something is insightful, that adds value to readers or watchers, and that is correct, then it's a net positive for society. And I'll generally try and make a well-reasoned argument and know that sometimes people will disagree with it, and you're not going to please everybody all the time. If you try and please 100% of people, you'll drive yourself crazy. Like, can I please enough people, and can I change people's minds? And in terms of the other point, which is sort of worrying what people think from a business perspective, I think probably certainly the last 5 years, we've sort of got to the point where like if COVID didn't kill our business, it's probably like something will kill it a bit. Like no business lasts forever. Like if you look at the biggest business in 1970, like 3 of them are still around in the top 50, like Exxon and a couple others, but most weren't. So we'd love to build a 50-year business. That's certainly a big goal of ours, or a 100-year business. I'm not saying we'll be able to do it, but when we like to be long-term greedy. We'll be very generous for customer service. We want to keep customers. We understand the lifetime value of customers. We're willing to sacrifice short-term profitability for long-term profitability. We want to build a long-standing business. And we often think about that, but I don't think our business is going to topple over tomorrow or in 6 months or in 12 months. So it's a very different business now to it was in 2012, when we were reliant on a small number of great people and a small number of great deals. Now we've got 600 people in the team, of which hundreds of them are elite people who add a heap of value. We talk about founder manager mode. Like yeah, I'm a founder of this business, but it doesn't matter how good a founder you are. You need 100 amazing people to be able to make a great business. And Brian Chesky, who came up with the founder mode thing, Airbnb isn't because of him. Airbnb is because of Belinda Johnson, who was his great offsider for a number of years. And I think is still there or maybe recently left. He had a number of people, hundreds of people who made Airbnb what it is. Yeah, having a great founder like Brian there is handy, but Brian himself ain't doing anything. Adam Schwab ain't doing anything by himself. Adam Schwab with an incredible ELT, an amazing SLT, an OLT, some incredible talent for everybody from doing hotel deals to answering our phones to doing the design work to writing the words. It's an incredible team, and my job is to assemble and retain that team and allocate capital and work on the product. But that's only a small part of the business. There's a bunch of people doing a lot of other stuff.
Yeah, that's a really great point that you make, because oftentimes we see the CEO, the founder, that's the person that gets all the recognition, a lot of the, quote unquote spotlight, but behind them are just incredible people, right? Just next level killers, just absolute machines. And people don't talk about enough. That is so key if you want to scale a business. You can build $1 million business by yourself, especially with AI now. There is no doubt about it. You could build $1 million one product, e-com business, SaaS business, service-based business. It is possible, right? Definitely. There is a one-person business in you, but to get to 10, 20, 30, 50, 100, 200, a billion, you need to surround yourself with just really quality leaders, great people. But not enough people talk about how to actually do it. You have to learn it yourself. And there's just so many, once again, a common thread, hiring and overpaying for execs that promise the world. It's unfortunately a rite of passage, right?
We've both seen that, and we know about that better than anyone probably. And sometimes you got to pay up for really good people, and sometimes you should be really quick when somebody isn't contributing to move them on, because it's actually not helping them either. And I think we all know fire fast is real, and I never fire fast enough, and partly because it might not be the right time, might be coming to Christmas, or it might be someone's had an issue at home, or there's often a reason why not to do it. And sometimes actually you should just wait till there's a slightly better time for that person. But as soon as that window opens, sort of to jump through it. But when you do, the main role of a manager for our businesses at our scale is finding really good people and keeping them and not having to pay 5x market. So paying market, so you want to make sure people are paid fairly. So you don't want to pay someone less than what they get elsewhere because it's not fair to them. So pay someone the market rate, but you don't want to pay someone double market rate because you're a terrible employer in other respects. So, but finding great people is, and as I think the one really, and this is something that I'm sure you deal with a lot, is how do you scale as a CEO, as a leader? So we all start with 0 employees, and then there's a different set of skill when you get to 150, and a very different set of skills at 300 and 500. I'm sure there's different set of skills at 1,000 and 10,000. And as Reid Hoffman says, you've got to be continuous learner, or infinite learner. You've got to constantly reinventing yourself every year, every 6 months. How am I learning? How am I growing? And if you're not learning and growing, you're probably going to stop contributing to the business. And I don't own all the business. So there'll be a time where shareholders say, actually, Adam, you've done all you can, and we appreciate it. And let's bring in Nathan to run the business, because Nathan's going to do a better job than you, because Nathan's run a business that's this scale and whatever. So at the time, and it's really hard to recognize, it's very hard. Not many politicians quit when they're ahead. Very few CEOs resign at the right time. It's a real sort of challenge knowing when you're not adding value, but you also don't want to leave too early. You don't want to do a Howard Schultz either and come back 17 times, because how does that guy ever hire a CEO again? But you also don't want to stay. You also don't want to stay too long. So it's a really tough challenge. But the real key is, how do you keep learning? How do you keep adding? And also, how do you recognize when you're not adding value?
And so I'm curious. You've obviously had some incredible people around. You talk about the deal making dude and stuff like that. So what do you look for when it comes to hiring great people, having great people around you? Are there any key things? It
really depends on the role. Okay. Certainly grit, resilience is a massive one. So what you look in a founder, you're also looking for an employee. A great employee for us is an entrepreneur. If we can have 200 founders in our business, and we've got a lot of people who are kind of like quasi-founder or entrepreneurs or refounders, as Reid Hoffman calls them. We've got a bunch of people who could quite easily have their own business, but are being an entrepreneur in our business, we love that. So someone who's been an entrepreneur, someone who really sort of shows that love of entrepreneurship. We've had lots of people, and we have lots of people like that who work in our business. And there's some people who are just great workers. They're not entrepreneurial as such, but they're just super smart. Other people are really good sort of negotiators and create value. It's actually really hard to know day one. And interviews are a shocking way to test it. People prove pretty quickly how good they are when you throw them in. So yeah, we look at sort of what people have done. Someone's worked for a big bank or spent their career working for a big bank, probably not going to be a great fit in our business. If someone who's had a startup themselves, more likely to be a good fit. Not always. If someone's worked in a scale up, that's great. If you were employee 5 at Uber and grew the first 20 billion, that's perfect for a scale up like us. We love hiring people who started early because they really take a risk and has scaled up with the business. They're unbelievable people to have in your business. So someone who's worked in a scale up and has done it before is fantastic. We just want people who are high initiative, high EQ, not a dickhead, love collaborating, love coming into the office where we'll soon be back 5 days a week. We're 4 days now, but we tell people that so they know. So if someone doesn't want to come in, they're aware. Someone wants to work from home every day. And there were some exceptions, of course, like carers, disabled. So let's take out the exceptions because there's reasons for that. But if you're able-bodied and aren't a carer, we want you in 5 days a week as of January. And if you don't want to, that's completely fine. There's a lot of businesses who aren't 5 days a week, and we go work with those guys and you'll have a great career, no doubt. But we want a certain type of person who just relishes being with other people and loves collaboration. And that's what the model we've built. And it's not for everyone. Atlassian takes a very different approach, and they're a $40 billion US business. So there's different approaches that clearly work. That's our approach, and we want a certain type of person. And there are certain people who do really well in our business and certain people who just don't do as well. And we want to try and, when we're doing it, I'm interviewing people, it's not simply them trying to impress me, it's me trying to impress them, and also being really honest. And saying what's good and what's bad about our business. And no business is perfect. No person's perfect, no business is perfect. So we want to let people know we are a hard charging business. We can be pretty brutal. If you're not up to it, we'll probably move you on. But if you're really good, if you've got high initiative, if you want to work in a high performing team, if you want to make lots of money, and you love working with people, then we're a great business for you. That's not everybody. So there's certain people who want to, and if you're not that, there's lots of government businesses you can work for. There's lots of big businesses you can work for. So just pick and choose. And someone who's lifelong career at a bank, I'm talking about retail, not investment. Investment's different. If you've worked at JP Morgan your whole life or Commonwealth Bank your whole life, probably not going to be a great fit for us. Like, unlikely. If you worked at a big corporate, sleepy corporate, government body, probably not. That's it. If you worked in a startup, spent 6 months in a bank and hated it, maybe you are the right person for us because you hate that environment, you love this environment. So it generally sorts itself out, but we have a good idea of what works and what doesn't.
So what's interesting is I used to work at a travel company, one that's been around for like 40 years now.
Great travel business.
Intrepid Travel. I worked there. I ended up leaving, not because I didn't love the company or the culture, but just the work wasn't for me, and I wanted to do bigger things. But
clearly you have.
Yeah, well, there you go. But man, what you just described is very, very different for like the travel business industry and the culture. It's usually very, very casual. So you don't really hire people from like the travel industry by sounds of it?
In some roles we do.
Okay. Maybe agents or reps.
Agents and reps, yep. So if you're speaking to our hotels, that's usually, not always, but usually out of travel. But it's a certain type of sales negotiator.
It's very chill, man.
But if you look at Flight Centre, who's the great Australian travel business, they're pretty hardcore in many ways as well. And then we get a lot of great people from Flight Centre, and Screw, who runs it, is a classic entrepreneur. So a lot of people who have left Flighties come to us, or have left Flighties, gone somewhere else, come to us. It's a pretty common route. But yeah, if you look at our tech team, it's not travel generally. Almost no one's come out of travel. And if you look at other sort of marketing teams, generally not travel, for example, finance not travel. So yeah, but part of the reason why we've had some success in travel is every travel business has done it a certain way. And the same reason Flighties had all that success. The same reason Intrepid had that success is they came from generally not, like, so Screw, who runs Flighties, was a vet. I was a lawyer, James was a bank. Like, not having that rusted on travel knowledge was a massive. So we didn't know anything about it. I'd never stayed in a 5-star resort ever, and I started a business called Luxury Escapes. So that was helpful. So agents used to hate us, and some still do, but now we work with agents. So agents sell our product and we give them commission. So we've gone from agents hating us almost across the board to some agents absolutely loving us because we make them lots of money. So we've sort of changed a bit there. But yeah, part of the reason we're able to succeed in some sense in travel is not being from travel.
Because you guys basically like are a full-blown travel agency now, you would say, yeah, in many ways.
We consider really a tech-driven travel seller, and we create the world's best holidays. So we're not simply selling a dumb travel product. We have a product called Trip Planner where you can drag and drop all your stuff, all your experiences, your hotels. While you're on holiday, you can be adding stuff in as you're going to the airport. You can add
like TripIt,
but better than TripIt. But yeah, like TripIt. TripIt you can't buy stuff on. Yeah. So TripIt you'll buy on Qantas or Delta, and you forward your things TripIt. So we have that, but TripIt you got to buy on another platform. You can buy on our platform or other platforms. So you can redeem your points on KrisFly on Singapore Airlines and then put your flight in our Trip Planner, or you can buy Singapore Airline flight on Luxury Escapes. Or as you drive into Melbourne Airport, you can go to the Aspire Lounge, one of the nicest lounges in the airport, and for $62 or you can drink champagne and an unbelievable meal before your flight by swiping, and bang, it comes straight in. So, and then you can plan your trip, and part of the fun of travel is planning, looking forward to it. So you can we sort of gamify the planning process. Once we have our point system established, we're going to do a lot more around that. But you can share it with your partner, and here's what I want to do. They can say, no, get rid of that. I want to stay at Ritz-Carlton, not Park Hyatt. And they can sort of chop and change. And then when you're on holiday, I think most itineraries, travel agents give you this piece of paper, and you're kind of handwriting on the side or crossing it out if it's changed. With us, it's all online, dynamic, and you're just changing it. So it's probably, I think, the best travel planning tool in the world, and it's getting a lot better.
Yeah, wow, that's really cool. So a couple last questions. We have to work towards wrapping up, man. We could talk all day. This is awesome. So one thing I think you've done exceptionally well, and you kind of talked to it, was brand, right? I think the Luxury Escapes brand is a very, very good brand. Like, you've done a really great job. You and the team should be super proud. I'm curious, what advice would you give to early stage founders that want to create a brand in a space where it is easier than ever now to start a business, right? Easier than ever. You've got AI, you've got basically a co-pilot helping you to speed up things. You've got so much information out there, like Foundr, like we provide so much gold for people, right? Like, you know, what would you say to people that want to create a brand that is getting cut through, that speaks in a crowded market? Obviously it takes time, but and you've got to chip away. Just like with Foundr, like I've slowly built the brand and chipped away, and it takes time to build brand. But like, do you have any principles or anything you could share?
I think that's a really good point, in that, like, if you go back 30, 40 years to Don Draper, Mad Men, and you put an ad on TV and you get great reach, and that's how you build a brand. Yeah. Forget that. That's just non-existent. How have we built? I can sort of only speak to us because it's hard to advise on the hypothetical. But if you look at us, how do we build our brand? And it was slowly. So we built one on just having the world's best product. So we have the world's best travel deals you couldn't get anywhere else. So we had a cornered resource. So you want to save 40% when everything else is at par, you have to go through Luxury Escape. So people would slowly discover us. They first see us, they think we're a fraud. This is too good to be true. How can they be so much cheaper than everyone else? There's something got to be a catch. And the early adopters and the mavens start buying, and they tell 3 or 4 friends, I did this amazing Luxury Escapes. You wouldn't believe how good this was, because it actually is unbelievable. You're at a resort and the person next to you's paid $2,000 and you've paid $2,000 and you've got 7 dinners, 7 breakfast transfers and massage, and this person's got nothing and is paying $2,000 for what you've just got for free. So and then they find out and go, oh my God, I'm doing that next time. So it's been a lot of someone tell someone. So great product was one big reason. The second one is really good customer service. So we overinvest in customer service. We always have. We're a not high margin, high cost product. So even more reason why we've got to put a big emphasis on customer service. We had phone service for the last 10 years, unheard of in travel. Booking.com has 0 service. You literally cannot speak to anyone. You dial when you're away, good luck speaking to someone booking. You just can't. They have no one. Expedia the same, Airbnb the same. Or Airbnb is less bad, actually, in fairness to them. We have 24/7 customer service on the phone all year. Christmas Day, 2 a.m, we'll answer the phone. So there's great product, great customer service, and then we do marketing, but we actually did mostly direct response marketing. So we'd actually advertise our deals themselves. We have done a tiny bit, but like we're talking like sub 5% brand marketing, probably sub 1%.
Of your total
total ad spend.
And total ad. So your total annual budget will be sub 1%, you reckon, on brand.
Now it's probably eking up now, but I'm talking about the whole lifestyle business.
Yeah.
The sort of difference is we've done some stuff. We've created a media business. So we run our own TV show, we produce it. We run it every year. So we had 8 seasons of it. We have our own magazine. We had a podcast briefly. We do a lot of radio editorial stuff. So I'll go on the radio 2-3 times a week for like 5, 10, 15-minute segments. So we do a lot of and a lot of newspaper ads, which again, people think newspaper's dying. Well, it's been incredible for travel sector. So we do a lot of stuff that's sort of semi-brand, semi-content, combine that with incredible product, combine that with incredible customer service. That's how we've been able to sort of grow the brand to 6% recognition. We're still not booking.com. We're still not Flight Centre. We're still not Expedia. We're still not Airbnb. We're not at those levels. But I think our brand's always been bigger than our business, if that makes sense. And now you can speak to, it'd be rare that I'd speak to somebody in Australia who hasn't heard of us, and a good chunk of people I speak to have bought from us. UK, we're slowly making progress. Like most people in UK haven't heard of us, but maybe 1 in 15 have. And eventually that might be 1 in 10, then 1 in 5, then 1 in 2. In the US, no one's really heard of us yet. Some people who have bought from us love it. Like we sell more Maldives to US customers than I think anyone in the world because we're great at Maldives. But clearly we're nothing like Expedia and Booking in the US. But yeah, so we've had a few different ways to build a brand. And we're just trying to do the right thing by customers, I think, is a really big one. If we provide a great product at a really good price and do the right thing by customers through the process, if you look at our reviews on Trustpilot or Product Review, it's probably the highest retail travel. It's sort of 4.8, 4.9. And there's always been some people who are unhappy. And usually people are unhappy because the hotel's sort of done something wrong, which is not common, but occasionally hotels just whatever do the wrong thing, or there's confusion, or there's a tech, who knows. But it's pretty rare that a customer has an issue with what Luxury Escapes have done. They're probably 1 in 100.
Yeah, well. Yeah, look, I think when you think about, you said something really interesting. You said, we are bigger than we're perceived. Like why do you think that is? Is it because of the name, Luxury Escapes?
It's a very generic name, which should be a factor. I think just because the stuff we do is, because we're out there and the way we do our marketing is pretty sleek, and the brands we work with are pretty impressive, and the product we sell, and because a lot of people have had a Luxury Escapes holiday. We've had 800,000 people went on a Luxury Escape last year. But still a lot smaller
customers last year. That's
people went on a Luxury Escape because multiple people go on a Booking.
Yeah, okay, but still, that's pretty impressive.
It was a lot bigger than we used to be when we started, but it's still probably like 100 million went on a Booking. So it's still like a lot smaller than Booking.com. But I think people in many cases, because they know, in Australia, they know so many people who have used us or who do use us, it possibly appears we're bigger than we are. So yeah, we're not a small business, but we're not a Booking.com and Airbnb who are giant global Goliaths.
Yes. So I'm curious, in terms of penetration, you said that US isn't as strong as you'd like it to be. Do you guys plan to have that media arm in the US and really start to build out there? Like,
the US is the world's biggest travel market. So that's it. It's not that much bigger than Germany and the UK, surprisingly, just because more people in Germany and UK sort of travel. So if you add up Germany and the UK, they're bigger than US, funny enough. Yeah. And then Australia is probably only like 1/5 of the US, even though it's 1/10 the size, because we travel more. We over-index. So if you look at, we're in certain niches, we're dominant. So if you look at people traveling to Bali, we're like 20% of people who travel to Bali. We'd be the 8th largest country supplying Bali. Sorry, sorry. We're about 10% of people who go to Bali and 20% of Australians who go to Bali, which is pretty significant. We're 50% of Australians who go to the Maldives. So certain routes, we're very dominant. Other routes, we're less so. US, we were pretty good during COVID, pretty aggressive during COVID, but we probably focused too much on growth and not enough on profit. And now, obviously, since COVID, our focus has been how do we grow profitably rather than how to grow at any cost. So what we said is we seem to have more product market fit in the UK and then potentially in Europe. Our product's just more appropriate for those markets. So we've got 30 people in Barcelona now. We've got a call center for services in the UK. We've got much more people in Europe sourcing European and UK hotel packages. So we're just saying, let's focus on 1 or 2 markets, which is sort of UK, Germany, Netherlands, a couple of those really good markets there. Get them right, and then look to the Asia and the US down the track. So we are still operating in Singapore, Hong Kong, India, Middle East, US, but they're not focus markets. We sell every day in those markets, but not to the extent where we sell in the UK. Our UK business is becoming material. It's now our third largest market behind Australia and New Zealand, and it will probably overtake New Zealand in the next couple of months.
Yeah, wow.
Growing well over 100% a year on year with no increase in marketing spend. So it's been a really great result. And it's really come from really smart people there and great supply.
And do you need much boots on ground to launch in another country or to go harder there? Or not
to
really?
Launch, no, because we were in 30 countries.
Yeah.
And so, but to go hard, you need better supply. So if you look in Europe, we don't need boots on the ground in Germany necessarily. We can probably do that from our Barcelona hub. Yeah. So once you got the supply, so we can do, but Europe supply is pretty relevant for Europe. So if we get like hotel product in Czech Republic, in Germany, in France, in Turkey, in Morocco, it's kind of appropriate for everyone there. And we've got great product in Asia already. We dominate Asia. Great product in Maldives, very solid product in the Middle East. So a lot of what we already have existingly is really good for these markets. So we probably won't put boots on the ground in every European country, but we want to grow through Europe. We've got some people in the US now sourcing product, and we will rebuild that US demand side, called the marketing side, and that probably won't come this year, but probably in the next two to 3 years, I suspect. We really want to lean into Europe. We think that could be a really big growth engine for us. And look, Australian companies historically don't perform well overseas. So you don't want to be too arrogant and say, we succeed in Australia, we're going to do well. It's the ones that have, so Atlassian and Canva are actually inherently global businesses. There were actually very few businesses that started in Australia and then were successful overseas. Yeah. And it's pretty obvious why. It's because you understand the Australian market, your brand's strong here, our brand's zero everywhere else. So you get much lower conversion rates, much higher CPAs. You got much higher credit card fees in places like that. So it's certainly challenging, but the UK experience in the last year has been a much better one. We're definitely not there yet, but we're getting there, and I'm much more confident we will hit genuine product market fit in the UK, and US will hopefully chat in 2 years, and hopefully we've hit it.
Yeah, okay, there you go. Well, look, Adam, man, this has been a whirlwind. We've gone pretty deep on the business, the operations, the highs, the lows, economics, the crazy wins that you've had. So just anything kind of that you'd love to finish off on, any questions that you wanted me to ask you, any questions that you think interviewers don't ask that they should ask more often as a fellow podcaster yourself?
I think you've done this a few times. I think you've hit all the questions pretty well. It's a super honor to be on. You've done an incredible job as a founder. Obviously, we've been friends for a long time. And I've watched on your business, incredible business. And if you're watching, subscribe to Foundr because it's a ripping program. But yeah, it's a real honor to be on the show. I've followed you for a number of years, and Jez has been super envious that he's not a shareholder in your business. And yeah, just it's been a pleasure to chat.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much, Adam.
Thanks, Nate.
Hey guys, if you love this episode, you've got to check out my interview with Davey Fogarty on how he finds trends in undercapitalized markets and turns them into multi-million-dollar businesses.
I'm generally looking for trends globally. We find trends that haven't been kind of capitalized in certain markets or in certain marketing channels.
Yes.
And then we also obviously add our flair to it. You need to differentiate your product.